Hi, everybody, and welcome to the We're Not Lost Private Podcast, episode 11. I'm Joe Muccia, that's Leighton Hughes, and it feels like a million years since the last one we did, right, buddy?
It does, yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right.
I mean, we launched the last one, we probably did it a week before the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and then the anniversary came and went and saw lots of great stuff. Was a little jealous I wasn't there, but I'll be there in another 8 or 9 days. I know you were like me, a little upset that you didn't get to make it over there.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it looked chaotic, didn't it? I mean, I had friends over there, and I mean, one comment I saw by Jared Frederick, and he commented on Woody's, I think it was Woody's post on Facebook, and he sort of said, "I'm sad that I'm not there, but I'm also sad, and I'm also not sad that I'm not there," type thing, because it just looked carnage. And I mean, the concert in St. Mary Glees, I mean, amazing. I mean, it looked like a proper concert as well, rather than how it's been done typically before when, Nashville X-File have been, Exile, sorry, have been there. It's been like a stage with a, in Carenton, in this sort of open area there next to the restaurants, etc. Um, yeah, so it got a little bit bigger.
Yeah, for our viewers and listeners who don't know, Exile is one of the bands that Band of Brothers actor Nick Aaron is associated with, along with Kat and Rick and the others, and they put a fantastic show on every time. Every time you see them, and if you don't follow them on social, please do because they're always throwing stuff up on social, and they do a great job. Um, Especially love their Tom Petty covers, but. Yeah, I the wife and I had done the 2012 anniversary, and it wasn't one of the big ones. It wasn't a 5 or a 10, but it was still it was like you said, it was carnage. It was crazy. Trying to get to and from places. And when I talk to folks who want to go on my tours, and they're always like, "Can we go around an anniversary?" And I'm like, "Well, we'll spend twice as much and see half as much."
Hmm.
If that's what you want to do. And in fact, with the tour I'm taking over there in another few days, they were very happy once I explained everything to them. But yeah, it did look fantastic. There were a lot of great things that happened there. But yeah, it also looked like high mayhem, and I'm kind of glad I missed a lot of it. Um, but
Yeah.
we're here to talk about one of the most well-known reporters of World War II. As we teased out in our social media posts, we're going to be talking about Mr. Ernie Pyle today. Leighton decided that we were going to do Ernie, and I think it's a great choice because he's so widely known, and his work is so amazingly detailed. And um, I think he's the forerunner of people like, for better or worse, like Ambrose or others who write in that
Mhm.
vein. How he gets you into that foxhole, or he gets you into that tank, or he gets you into that aircraft, and makes it very immediate and and not only that, he puts you in contact with the regular Joes, as you would say, right? The GIs, the fighting men that are on the ground, the guys who do the hard stuff, the guys that are there slugging it out with the enemy. And I think that's one of the things that made him so popular back then. Any thoughts on from your point
No,
of
I
view?
mean,
I
yeah,
mean,
I
you
mean,
suggested him, so come on, man. Why'd you want to talk about
I think
Ernie
sorry, it's just been
Pyle?
an interesting subject. Yeah. I mean, obviously, he involved in a number of campaigns. He wasn't shy, was he? In in what he got involved with. He went from North Africa to Sicily to Italy and to France, and obviously then tragically Okinawa in 1945. So he wasn't afraid to get stuck in to the action. Um, sorry, excuse me, and he's 45 years old as well.
Yeah, he wasn't a youngster. He's
No,
running around out there with these 20 somethings and in keeping up with them. And and like you said, he never shied away from the gunfire. And unfortunately, he would lose his life at Ishima. Um, when he in a Jeep that he was riding in, part of the 77th Infantry Division, the 305th Infantry Regiment commander, and they were driving and they got ambushed, and he poked his head up at the wrong time and was killed by a German machine gun. But I mean, he came from pretty humble beginnings himself. You know, he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
um, born in Indiana in 1900. Um, went to school there in at the University of Indiana. Editor of the school paper. Um, Him and some buddies decided to follow the school basketball team to Japan one year, and they went on a merchant marine vessel on over there and worked for their passage. So he had an interesting view of the world and travel, and it seemed to he caught a real bug about it. And
yeah. Probably a really interesting time as well to go to Japan. Um, I mean, because I think from what I've read previously, not necessarily about Ernie Pyle, but certainly about Japan, um, in how they were finding themselves as a nation, and obviously the relationship with the US. I mean, certainly reading Flyboys by, so I'm trying to look, I don't know why I'm looking across. I was looking for my James Bradley book, Flyboys by James Bradley, who wrote Flags My Fathers. And he, a portion of his book is about Japan and its rise and its relationship with the US. And certainly, I mean, it'd been interesting if he sort of saw that, if he had that sort of interaction, with trying to get my words out right. It'd be in, the from what I've read, I'm going to blame this on James Bradley, the author. That the US looked down at Japan. That the Christian world looked down at Japan. That they discover some, you know, bit of land or an island, and it just literally get taken away from them. And obviously, that's where that resentment came in with the US, and obviously they attacked Pearl Harbor. That's my understanding from reading Flyboys. That build up to that action of Pearl Harbor. Um,
but
so
the Japanese culture pre-war, very interesting. You know, they're coming out of that feudal system, um, but they also are. It's almost reflective in the way that Westerners look down on the Japanese, or the Japanese look down on Westerners as uncultured,
mm,
undereducated foreigners, and they didn't want us in their country, but you have every right to feel like that. You're a nation; you can feel whatever way you like about foreign people coming to your country.
mm,
But I see there's definitely um, that viewpoint on both sides. But interesting that he would go there and he could see the Japanese culture pre-war, but then come back and not so much that have the effect on him, but the travel itself. He seemed to get that travel bug, right?
mm,
He and his wife marry. They moved to Washington D.C. They write for a couple of different organizations and papers, publishers at the time. And then they embark on like a 9,000-mile trek around the country, feeding his travel bug, but also allowing him to write about everyday people. And again, I think that allowed him to fine tune his craft before the war. Like he's unknowingly
mhm.
working on his craft in terms of develop himself as a writer and what he likes to present to the reader. Because I know you've read his books. I've read them. Was waving these out before we went on the air. Brave Men and Here's Your War. And if you've read these, you'll know that his books are rich in description, and they're also rich in emotion. And I know there's several passages where he talks about men who are killed and how, especially like commanding officers, and how their men view them solemnly. But interestingly, he's able to capture also the immediacy of combat. There's one, it's in Italy. There's a captain who's killed, and his men treat him reverently as they bring him back down off the mountain where he's killed, and then they talk about him in glowing words, at least ones for those days,
Mhm.
and then they move out as if they forgot him because they have a war to fight. And I think that his ability to bring that care about a fallen soldier and show the love that the other men had for him, and then show how they have to completely almost excise it from their brain so that they can carry out their next duties. I think again, these are all little things that I think spoke to the American public at the time, because by the end of the war, his reports, his dispatches were being carried in over 400 um, daily and weekly publications. I mean, that's tremendous coverage
Yeah.
for a single author to have that kind of reach at the
And
time.
even at that time in that time in history as well, because if it's getting that reach, I mean, we didn't have the bear in mind we didn't have the internet then, or email or things like that, so things were a lot slower. So to have that reach speaks volumes about him and his writing.
Yeah, and to foot stomp that, I showed this to Leighton as we before we went on the air. As when I received my copy of Here Is Your War, tucked into the front of the book was this report of Pyle's death from the Minneapolis Sunday Tribune, dated November 12th, 1944. So whoever owned this copy followed him to the point where they were almost scrapbooking about his writing, including pasting the death notice in the inside the front page. So um, obviously showing some reach and the reach and popularity of him as a writer. But again, annually when D-Day rolls around, I post the excerpt from Brave Men about the landing when he finally makes it onto the beach, and he talks about the jumble of equipment and finally gets to the men at the end of it. Because he's trying to show that the dichotomy of what's on the beach in terms of things that are not alive. First, it's equipment, and then he goes to the men, and he does an excellent job of describing it all the detritus of war and the impact. And I think again, that's what probably made him really so popular. He could convey that immediacy and that detail, but from the GI's point of view. So when readers would read it, they're reading about somebody they may know. And I think that that connection, just helped to foster his popularity.
And the way he talks about war as well. I mean, there was a quote I seen earlier, and I was meant to have marked it, um, and how it was just a descriptor of war. Um, I'm trying to find it now, and it was just it sounds really bad. Um, but the way he said it was just, it was just one simple sentence about how, war was the worst of mankind and mankind was the worst of war type thing. Um, Hope I can find that quote, or if you know it, Joe, it'd be, it'd be
Hmm.
incredible. But yeah, it's certainly his quotes. He's got quite a lot of quotes as well. I mean, and they're all quite relatable. Certainly for somebody who's served as well. And can understand what he's thinking. It's very very relatable, and yeah, just an very interesting man, and obviously scribes very, very well. And to a
Yeah.
point, talk about brave men, and here is your war. It was that they the inspiration for the film GI Joe. Um, you know, so I think yeah, probably a year after his death, I think like 1946. It was released with Burgess Meredith playing
Yep.
Ernie Pyle. So for those who don't know or might doesn't recognize the name or recognizes the name, it's obviously played Mickey in Rocky in the Rocky
Hmm.
film. And
Yeah. And to
um,
me, and I don't know about you, there's always been a synergy between his work and Bill Mauldin's work to me, because they speak to the same audience, although Bill's work was obviously part of Stars and Stripes and it was focused towards the GIs. But to me, there's so much commonality between the language of the two that I almost look at them as a paired reading when I do dust them off and take them back out again. And I have a lot of Mauldin's books too, and I really, when I read either one of them, I see parts of the other linking up with the text or with the narrative. And again, I don't know how other people view them, but I do know how vets viewed both of them.
Hmm.
Um, if you get a chance to, for our readers and listeners, if you get a chance, our listeners and viewers, if you get a chance to take a look and do some research on Bill Mallon too, you'll find when he was on his deathbed, he had GIs coming to visit him constantly. And according to his family, those were the most important visits next to them
Hmm.
that he had, and it kind of energized him a bit before his passing. Pyle never got a chance to have that. I mean, he obviously was a bit of he had that notoriety when he traveled back to the States, but he was dealing with so much back then. He was his wife at the time, Jerry, was they both were alcoholics.
Hmm.
Um, but according to Ernie, he was more like a situational alcoholic. And we know nowadays that's a coping mechanism for all the stress that he was under because he was most likely suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder from all of his close calls and seeing men killed. And so his coping mechanism became him and his wife had the same coping mechanism, but she also had some psychological issues. She had some mental disorders, and so it was a very rough union for quite some time. And especially he's not there a lot during the war years, and she suffers a couple of mental breakdowns. And they actually got divorced, but they end up um, marrying again before he heads back overseas for the final time. And interestingly, she passes away less than a year after he's killed, I think.
Oh,
I'd have to
wow.
go back and check the
Hmm.
timelines, but you know, you have to feel for them as a couple. They've got so many things stacked against them, and he's dealing with his PTSD. They both have
Yeah.
alcoholism. She has mental disorders. I mean, it's a very rough relationship and at times, and they don't have any kids, so there's no survivors
Yeah.
of the Pyle family. He never got to feel that late in life love that, say, Bill Malden got to feel, um, which I find very sad when you think about it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, just going on what you said there, I mean, probably, as they say, science, died of a broken heart. You know, just reading it now, I mean, then it probably didn't help that, her body was probably battered and bruised from what I've read. Like I says, you talk about, suffered from alcoholism and periods of mental illness, bipolar, and made several suicide attempts.
Yeah.
You know, um,
Again, tough for the, we there's a lot more light nowadays shed on the spouses and what they have to endure, and the support systems that are around them now. Back then, there was
Probably nothing.
nothing. I mean, and she wasn't married to a GI who had a unit of GIs with him, who had a unit, had a group of wives that they could talk to and keep interconnected. And they were living in New Mexico at the time, so they weren't anywhere near her family either. So, I mean, she's essentially alone
Yeah.
to deal with all this. Um,
And it can't
it's a
be
very,
easy.
very difficult for her.
Yeah. Like I says, no children. And yeah, obviously when, she took, the news of her husband's death, very brave, bravely. I mean, I suppose as brave as you could, like I says, those circumstances. And yeah, health rapidly, you know, declined, from then and complications from influenza, Albuquerque, gosh, November 1945, so not even a year later. So
Mhm.
for me, sounds like she died of a broken heart.
Yeah,
So
I would say that all those other things that we talked about probably just contributed to it and exacerbated the problem.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
probably in a downward spiral. Um, and yeah, that probably, had that. And I know that's what they say, isn't it? You hear of so many things of, husband or wife passing away and, the other half going quite soon, going quite quickly afterwards because they've lost a piece of them and they just can't cope. And yeah, they supposed to say die of a broken heart. But yeah,
Yeah.
really interesting, that, and there's obviously a picture as well of him on the battlefield, dead,
Yeah.
killed, in
Yeah.
action.
From what I understood, they kept the release of that quiet for a little while because they didn't want to trouble her. They didn't want to make anything worse. But yeah, that's a well-known photograph of him. And apparently, when he was buried with his helmet, and he was buried among GIs, which I think he probably would have
Yeah.
been very amenable to. But interestingly, he was in the Navy Reserve as well, joined before World War One. But by the time he was finished, he was supposed to go to Great Lakes Naval Training Center, and the war ended as he was getting his assignment there. So he never deployed over. And interesting, the one few criticisms I did read, or the few criticism I did read about him, came from Navy quarters. Apparently, they were a little upset the way that he didn't cover them as voraciously
Mhm.
as he covered the other services. So I think there was a little criticism on the part of the Navy, especially because he was a Navy man. So you
Yeah, of
kind of,
course.
you know, the services sometimes tend to eat their own a little.
Yeah,
Um,
that's understandable. I mean, was he when he was on these, campaigns, was he as a journalist or was he acting as a US Navy reservist?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean,
And most of them were land-based at the time.
mhm,
It would have been more difficult for him to get out to the Pacific for some of those island hopping campaigns, and he does get out there and he goes to Okinawa, and he pays for it with his life. So I mean,
mhm.
yeah, they can complain. You can complain all you want now. He can't argue back, right? Um,
I mean,
can't,
and as a journalist, you want, I mean, obviously not taking anything away from the Navy at all, because obviously they had their own, my gosh, life, but I think probably he knew he'd see a lot more with the army. And I think probably that's probably his decision in his thinking of it. Obviously, don't get me wrong, he probably had some, some significant experiences with the Navy. But with the army, he is going to be in it every day. You
and
know, he,
I think I did read somewhere that he, in conversations with friends when he was back in New Mexico before he went to the Pacific,
Mhm,
he was contemplating it hard. Like he didn't necessarily want to go back. Like, you become like, what's the phrase? A fugitive from the law of averages. And I think he knew the
mhm,
more he rolled the dice, it could come up with snake eyes. And I think he was well aware of that, but I think he also felt like he owed it to the GIs to go out there and report on everything that they had to endure.
yeah.
Um,
I mean,
so
yeah.
I mean
How many?
that loyalty at the end cost him his
Mhm.
life. Um,
Yeah, I
but
mean, prior to Okinawa, I mean, was that one, two, three, four campaigns?
yeah, it's
And
tremendous amount of campaigning on his part.
do we know how
Uh,
many days he was in each theater?
oh, not off the top of my head, I could go and we could do the math, as they say. We do the
Mm.
maths and figure it out. But
God, I wouldn't even like to look at those numbers because I think they'd probably be very, very high.
yeah, interestingly, when I went back and I was really actually reading through the stuff from North Africa, and the thing I think I found the most interesting was his coverage of the mundane things, like the day-to-day living, the having to
Mhm,
dig in all the time and move, fight, dig in, try and do laundry, try figure out what you're doing to eat. I mean, all those little details
mhm,
about where he was. And I think there was one part in Italy where a bridge gets taken out and they have to bring an engineering unit in, and he goes in very minute detail on all the little aspects and the intricacies of having to put up this replacement bridge and do it possibly under fire.
yeah.
Just some amazing writing there. And he does it not talking about these massive parachute assaults or an amphibious landing or a tank charge across an open field. He's just talking about grading a road and putting in a bridge. And if you can keep people's interest doing that and describing that, you got some talent, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
most people don't really care to read about those kind of things, but he had a knack for um, bringing them to life and bringing the reader into it. And interestingly, also tangentially, I've been seeing the adverts for Winslet's
Oh
new
yeah, yeah,
movie,
yes, yes.
Lee, about Lee Miller. I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners have seen the very famous photo of her taking a bath in Hiller's bathtub. Um, but I'm looking forward to that.
Well, agree, same. It looks incredible. and Kate Winslet is a wonderful actress as well. And obviously it's certainly a story that I don't know. So, I mean, I've read about it since, um, that they had to fight, as a female journalist to get to the action to get that. So yeah, I'm looking
Yes,
forward to,
something Pyle didn't have to worry about. I mean, he was immediately accepted by the GIs, whereas she I don't think she had as much issue with the lower ranks. I think it was the higher ranks, and I have
mm,
not, admittedly, not done much extra reading on Lee Miller's
no,
career.
I mean that's the
But
brilliance of movies, though, isn't it? The brilliance of television, that we will see something where it's a basis of a true story, and we will go down that rabbit hole and find out a little bit more.
well, I
As we
think
as we found out with Band of Brothers, we found out with the
yeah,
Pacific, Masters of
yeah.
the Air, sort
Or Saving Private Ryan with the Nyland
of.
brothers. Yeah,
Yep.
it's just it just needs one spark to
Hmm.
light that flame that gets you going and researching something
Yeah.
and finding it out. But for everyone, we'll have links of where you can probably pick up copies of Ernie's books. Um, we got a few other things to talk about, right? You're working on another signing for Curry signings.
Yeah.
Anything going? I wanted to show off some stuff. So recently, I was lucky enough to be able to purchase some paratrooper photos from World War II vintage. Um, they came in 20 of them in the pack. Sorry, the light's reflecting off of but these are original photos. And what I noticed was some of them I had already had different copies of them in my collection, and can hold these up and see if everybody can see these. They're fairly well known if you're into World War II paratrooper stuff. Um, these I originally got in Major Winter's collection. I got copies of, and I thought it was interesting because I believed that this paratrooper over here
Hmm.
was William Evans, Bill Evans, the Easy
Wow.
Company first sergeant, because the gentleman in that photo bears a striking resemblance to him. And I also knew that um, most of the 506 officers and some of the senior non-coms took parachute training at Toccoa before they
Hmm.
went to Fort Benning because Colonel Sink didn't want the enlisted instructors at the parachute school instructing his officers. So he put all of them, as many as he could, until they had an accident, and then he shut down training. But interestingly, I thought that because it was in Winter's collection, that was probably Easy Company, and it looked like Evans. But what I found out after I did more research was those two pictures were part of this larger collection. And the larger collection was a group of PX photos. So because men didn't have, unlike today where you have everything on your phone, back then not many people had cameras.
Hmm.
So the PXs had these packs of photos. If you were a paratrooper and you couldn't afford a camera and take your own pictures, you could go into the PX and buy this group of photos, write little notes on the back like this gentleman did, and then send them back to your family to kind of show them what you were doing. And
Incredible.
there were more
Postcards.
photos. Yeah, essentially they became like postcards. There's one here where they're using the wind device. I don't know if they can see that,
Lift up, yeah.
where they're getting dragged across, teaching you how to control yourself. This one appears in a fairly expensive Easy Company book. I noticed because of the black Converse. So yes, if you're into wearing period correct shoes, black Converse work. And then this one as well. So all of these had appeared in various Easy Company books up to that point, and I just thought it was really interesting. And then this one, of course, probably
Did
the
you?
most interesting.
Wow.
This is called a trainasium. The guys called it a plumber's nightmare, but apparently because they had so many guys had broken bones from falling on it. They suspended the use of it as a training device, but I thought these were pretty dynamite. And for our paid subscribers on Patreon, I'll put a few of these up there for you so you can take a look at them.
No, no,
We want to thank all of our paid subscribers. We have a new one, Pierre. Thank you so much for subscribing and chipping in and helping us keep the lights on and keep the reels running.
so
Um,
no, I think that's awesome. Thank you.
yeah.
Um, yeah, definitely keeps the lights on. And yeah, no, thank you for that. It is all very much appreciated. But obviously, not to cut you off, obviously talking about photos, and I've just realized that, I got given a gift. Um, because I gave somebody sand from Iwo Jima because I got given a small jar, and I mentioned this to a friend of mine, Marcel, and he said, "Oh, can I have some?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah. I'm not going to give you a lot because I haven't got a lot, as a gift, sorry, from the wonderful Taco Bell." And I've got another friend going next year, so I'm hoping he's going to get me some sort of really big jar of sand. So as a thank you, he got me. I told him I had this. I haven't got it to hand, but this the modern day sticker album is of the Third Reich or Adolf Hitler, sorry. And we see when we did the Eagle's Nest, we walked on together, and I was like, "Oh, I've got that." And we seen, the packs of with these stickers or cards, very similar to what you've got, Joe. Then this obviously just reminded me is these. Sorry,
Slide it over a little. There you go.
so obviously it says Adolf Hitler on the front, and this is like it is literally a an envelope, sticker pack, card pack.
Hmm.
Um, And obviously, my room in the behind is an absolute mess. So I got to have it blurred. Obviously, in the back, you got these photos very similar, obviously the Third Reich. So it's very similar to what Joe's got. I mean, that's probably working better, but um, yeah,
Now, are
just
they postcards or they're stickers?
the stickers, or well, I don't want to sort of damage them,
Interesting.
but they are cards. I mean, I'll have to sort of get a picture of the book, but it's obviously, tanks, of the Third Reich at its best, it's to promote it because,
Yeah, of course.
I mean, this is a great one.
The propaganda arm.
The propaganda arm. I mean, obviously, the big guy, the main man there. I mean, obviously, this is him, on the phone. Um, Another one on a parade. I mean, there's a fantastic photo. I say fantastic photo as if of him in Bastogne. Well, 'cause there's two of them, and you can actually see where they're taking them, and that's what I mean. Fantastic. It's fantastic in the sense that you can identify where that location is. So there's one next to the 101st. Well, they're both next to the 101st Museum. One outside a building, which is next door, and then there's one on the street corner, just right down to. I don't know if you know that one, Joe. Have you seen them?
In Bastogne?
Bastogne, yeah, those two
Yes. Yep.
locations, yeah. I mean, so I mean, look, I mean, yeah, these photos are incredible, and I'm not sure if they're stickers. Um, I'm afraid to sort of, attempt it, but there's certainly a
Yeah,
lot
you don't want to
of.
you don't want to mess with them too much.
No, I mean, there's certainly a lot of this guy, and they are incredible. I mean, again, yeah, the merchandise. I mean, the Third Reich, obviously, merchandise. I mean, those photos there, that's merchandise. The
Yeah.
current Coa PT t-shirts, merchandise. There's money to be made from people, and people say, I remember somebody telling me that, the Third Reich inspired a lot. They did little figurines. Um, Obviously the sticker books, there's various sticker books as well. So it wasn't just an Adolf Hitler one. I think there's a Third Reich. There's two or three variants of a sticker book. You can pick up a Militaria, and they're not too expensive as well to get, a complete one or certainly one in good condition. But
That's a pretty cool gift. Yeah. Was it
it's
Marcel got it for you?
yeah,
Nice of him.
he's a good guy. He does, history movie cinema, YouTube channel. He's a good guy. He's a good dude. Obviously he's got obviously an Instagram page as well called that. Um,
Interestingly, I have a group of postcards that the U.S. Army put out just after the war. They turned Berchtesgaden into an R&R center for GIs, and they had these little packs of cards, photograph cards, that had like the Eagle's Nest and the Berghoff and a bunch of other places after the Allies got there. So like some of the stuff is bombed, but it's a very interesting look. They were like souvenirs, like, oh, for your time here, here's a nice little souvenir you can take back. It doesn't
mm,
cost you any money. I got those years ago, but they're very interesting to look at, and I brought them with me the last time I did the last leg. Usually I'll do on the last leg of my tours. We end up in Berchtesgaden,
mm,
and I brought them with them, and it's kind of do interesting to do, like you said, there's a now and then effect
yeah. I mean, do you ever go to the
with it.
Berghoff on your tour?
What's that?
The
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 Berghoff?
foundation, the Berghoff.
What's left of it? Yeah. Yep.
I mean, that's an incredible. I mean, that's a great place to do then and now as well, isn't it? Those photos.
Yeah,
Uh,
we do stop over there. Generally it's after we've done Eagle's Nest.
okay, yeah, afterwards,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I wanted to also thank all the rest of our paid subscribers on Patreon and all of our subscribers on YouTube. Please like and subscribe and share if you like what we do and you want to keep us on the airwaves or on the video. Please like and share and keep following. And if you're so inclined to become a paid subscriber, there's lots of extras. Our sporadic but hopefully wanted newsletter and some behind the scenes stuff that we shoot. Some of Leighton's trip reports from going out and visit 8th Air Force bases across England. I've got some stuff on there from my trip to Toccoa with the first leg of the Currahee to Normandy crew before they went over to Europe to do their jumps for the D-Day anniversary. We'll have a bunch of more stuff coming up soon. For those of you who are interested, I just announced the December 80th anniversary Battle of the Bulge tour. It's a 9-day tour. I'll have the link up if you're interested in joining. It's very competitive pricing, and we cover quite a bit of ground there, including Bastogne and then up towards the northern shoulder for quite a bit.
Brilliant.
I think folks will get a kick out of it. And if everything works out and we're there, we'll probably see you and we'll grab a beer.
Yes.
So if you want to come and hang out with both of us, at least for a short period,
I'll be with
um,
Reg and hopefully Chris Langwar as well.
yeah, I think Red should be there. My buddy Ryan Stassen. So we'll see a bunch of folks, hopefully. But if you're interested, obviously, if you're interested in obtaining Band of Brothers actors autographs, Leighton's the guy. He's signing's the place. Um,
Yeah,
you
Ed
just finished
Tipper
up
is
with Jimmy Matteo.
sort of, yeah, like sort of a bit of a part two. Because when I saw him in May, um, like I was meant to have seen him at a time, and I was coming from the gym, and I get a phone call from him saying, "Hey, you ready now?" I'm like, "No, but I can be." So I had to come home, get all my stuff quickly. And remember, I put some posters to the side the day before because I needed a tube for them, and well, I put them on top of the wardrobe. And I obviously that was part of my plan to sort of, to get them sorted into a decent, because they're quite big, so a decent sized tube. Because of the rush or the panic of trying to get everything together, I completely forgot all about them. So I went down there to see him. And I remember coming home and I posted some pictures online, and I get a message from a really lovely guy saying, or two lovely guys saying, "Hey, I can't see my item. Did it get signed?" I was just like, "Oh God." I didn't say the actual words that I said, but I was like, "Oh God." So I explained to him, "Look, I'm so sorry. I will get them posted out to him." So I text Jimmy to say, "Hey,
I screwed
I got,
up.
yeah, I messed up, bit of a rush. Can I post these out to you?" He's like, "Yeah, no problem. Here's my address." And fantastic,
Yeah, Jimmy's awesome. For those of
And
you,
then,
who have spent time with him, you know how great he is.
oh, he's
For
fantastic.
those of you haven't, if he's around and he's going to do a signing or he's be traveling
He's a
somewhere,
blast.
highly recommend it. He's
And he's such a nice
just
guy.
he is one of the finest people you'll ever meet.
Yeah. I mean,
And
one
you've
thing,
got some irons in the fire for some other signings in the
yeah.
future. No announcements right now, right? But you got some things you're
No,
working
I
on.
mean, obviously, Jimmy, yeah, I have to go back and see him. I've asked him to speak to someone for me on my behalf. Ideally, I'd like to make that UK based rather than US based, but if it's US based, I'm hoping it ties into somebody else, and as well as somebody else. But that could take a bit of time. But then I'm hoping I've got another easy, UK based guy on the hook already. Actually, I've got two, so I just need to reach out to those. But I need to sort out this part of Sopley one because the dates, we had a date, then it got postponed, and we had another date and it got postponed, then I had to postpone. So it's just trying to find some middle ground with him because he's a busy man as a producer.
Now,
Uh,
have you and Matt done your Masters of the Air tour yet?
no, that's in September. So I've
Okay.
got a couple of,
So yeah, if you want to pitch it for the We Happy Few 506 guys,
yeah, so
we're happy to promote our fellow podcasters
why
around
not
here.
in it? That's what we do. And yeah, I mean, like obviously got a couple of signings with a couple of the guys already, Elliot Warren, Adam Long, who plays so Elliot plays James Douglas and Adam plays DeMarco, Benny DeMarco. Obviously, I got so I'm seeing the Rosie Riveter crew in September as well as a couple of others, Bubbles Payne and Chuck Bailey, or Bailey Brook and Louis Greatrix. So I'm hoping that can be like a bit of a mass signing. It's not going to be too expensive. And
Are you guys sold out ticket wise for the tour?
45, well, 42 minutes to be exact. So now
Wow,
we've got a bigger bus. Couldn't be,
fantastic. Congratulations.
yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I was nervous because it's eighth Air Force bases, but the buy-in was incredible. And we're now working on a second one where we're going to focus on one of the aircraft in the shown in the series, and we've got a couple of the guys already on the hook, sort of penciled in. Um, and I don't want to say who the names are on the air just yet because we've still got to plan it. But
Yeah, no worries.
one of the
Just
episodes,
nice to get the word out there for you guys.
absolutely, and it's all about an aircraft that is heavily featured in episode three, and
Yep.
it's built around that. And obviously, then day two or the other day, will be focused on something different, possibly not Band of Brothers, because we've kicked the arse out of that to a degree. We've been to Baston so many times. It's like we
Right.
want to give people something different. So as long as we tie in something which is related to a television show, which is where our focus is, me and Matt have spoken about this, so I'd love to do like a Great Escape Battlefield tour, because it's related to a movie and it's
Yeah.
sort of,
Right.
a myth busting type um tour rather than, so it's, what history inspires on television is probably our tagline in a way. Is how I like to say, but we do something which is non-related to the television show or a movie, and then the other day, or will be focused around that, and then obviously we'll try and get people involved, on board who are involved in that, or sort of. So say if we did a Great Escape one, you probably want to get somebody from Masters of the Air because of still a lot because of the POW camp,
Sure.
rather than getting somebody from Grey Escape because they're probably not all year now. Um, so it's tying it all in, really.
Yeah,
Um,
I do quite a bit of myth busting when I'm on tours. Um, I don't know, you're kind of torn when you're doing that kind of stuff because you don't want to spend a lot of time talking about something that's not real, but I think
mm,
I've learned to accept it because it's an avenue for people to engage in a historical discussion.
yeah, absolutely,
Like
and that's it. I mean,
if all their point of reference is something from The Longest Day or Band of Brothers or whatever, maybe that's great, but I can probably debunk it in less than 5 minutes, and then we're off talking about the actual thing, which I really,
exactly,
but it gives them a visual cue and a point of
absolutely.
reference. So you kind of you learn to live with it a little bit as a tour guide. And I'm sure you guys have experienced that a bit with myth busting.
I mean, we enjoy. We I think we thrive on the myth busting. We tell people, you know, we myth bust, because like I says, what you just said then is nail on the head. Is that they've got that visual in their head. And I saw something yesterday on social media. Somebody mentioned it was a video on the company HQ page with the ambush in Normandy.
Oh yeah, the wagon ambush
Yeah,
from
and
Band of
somebody said, "Oh,
Brothers.
why did they do that?" And Woody straight away was like, "Yeah, simple answer, lighting. That's why, because there's no bridge there, the
Yep.
actual location. So to myth bust that, I mean, to go there to actual location, you can still get that visual of it. Obviously, like, okay, there's no bridge, but you don't need the bridge there really
Yeah,
to
there's no railroad, there's no bridge. I mean, we've
yeah.
talked about this on our
Mm.
D-Day episode, our Day of
You
Days
can
episode
visualize
that we
it though,
did. Yeah,
can't you? It's pitch
yeah.
black, and at least
It
if you know
helps it helps to frame the shot, like you said. It helps for lighting, and because you're stuck with this overpass, you're in very confined quarters, so there's a very much of a claustrophobic feel to it,
Mhm.
that drives the drama of the scene a little bit. So
Yeah,
you can understand why all these choices are made, but at the end of the day, it's entertainment. It's not a documentary.
exactly.
So they do what they have to do to convey the story. Um, and the story at that point was to demonstrate the Wild Bill character, the genesis behind it. And
Why he was a wild bill. And I
yeah.
think, you see it in Masters of the Air, they can only do so much and they have to use that artistic license to
Mhm.
make it work. The Pacific, they have to use that artistic license to make it work. You see, like I said, it's not a documentary, but they're trying to, they have to bend the rules in some place, so
Sure.
John Orloff with Bubbles Payne, they had to bring his death forward by about 6 months
Yeah.
because they had to drive that reason to send, Harry
Cross.
Crosby
Yeah.
to Oxford. I mean, he went anyway, but they wanted to sort of give him a reason, like that
Yeah. Had to
dramatization.
provide the emotional gravitas of
Yeah,
getting him away from the base.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even though he
The,
went to anyone a conference, he got nominated. I don't think he wanted. I can't remember. I read the book a while ago. I need to reread it, but again, it's that dramatization, that artistic license, and I don't mind that, But then when they read the book, they'll go, "Oh my God! Oh, he did go. Oh right, okay." And then you listen to a podcast, and it's great, podcasts are great, and they get an explanation of why, of why they've done something.
Yeah.
And it's they just have, because obviously Masters of the Air, the 100th Bomb Group, there's so many, you know, they flew over 300 missions, and they had to get all this in, as well as obviously some of the other story arcs as well that they talk about, or show, sorry. So how can we move things around to accommodate this? Obviously, Bubbles dies, best friends with Harry Crosby, right? Okay, how can, so yeah, it's not a documentary,
Yeah. It's
and
not, but you know,
but they do their best, and
but
that,
I
yes.
again, myth busting, it gives us an opening to talk history
Mhm.
with people, and we do a lot of it on our pods. I do want to foot stomp. We've got some really great episodes that if you haven't stopped to take a listen to, um, we did an episode with Stephen Fisher on the release of his book Sword Beach. It has been exceptionally well received. Stephen has done a number of talks about it on other media, other social media. We're proud to say we got him first,
I was just
and we
thinking that
tried to
then.
do it justice. And he will be at the We Have Ways Fest. So if you're going to make it out there for Al and James's several day uh, extravaganza, Stephen will be giving a presentation on Sword Beach. I highly recommend it. Um, we also talked with Adam Berry about the 82nd Airborne and the books that he's written about it. So many great stories from Adam. I believe I think you were in the battalion aid station for that one.
Yeah, I was.
uh,
That's pretty well
Adam did a
done.
great job. Highly recommend his books as well. And if you catch up with him on social media, he's always posting about the 82nd in World War II. Some great stuff there. Very detailed knowledge of the division and its infantry regiments, parachute infantry regiments, and James Daly as well, whose book just released, canceled airborne operations that were connected to Operation Overlord. If you did not know that there were a number of follow-on operations, most of them they were going to be executed by the UK forces. It's pretty enlightening, actually. There's some a lot of groundbreaking there um, in his research, and he kind of sheds a lot of light on some really unknown aspects of the Overlord planning. So I highly recommend it. And if you haven't gotten a chance to watch it or listen to it, our Day of Days episode that we released the day before D-Day anniversary, about an hour and a half ish.
Must have been, yeah.
Um,
Close off, went
uh,
off, was it?
tour de force covering episode 2, but also just again we did a ton of myth busting in it, and we talked about the actual Easy Company and what they went through on D-Day. And I think if you're a fan of Band of Brothers and you haven't listened to it, you'll get
Mhm.
some stuff out of it you
Absolutely. Certainly
probably
around
didn't
concerning
know about the
Sobel. Yeah, exactly. Certainly concerning Sobel as well.
yeah.
I had somebody send me a screenshot. Talk about myth busting. Send me a screenshot from Facebook. Band of Brothers fans from our page. Talk, picture of Sobel in Normandy, and obviously the caption of he parachuted in. I'm like, no, he didn't.
Nope. He surely didn't.
Um,
And I know there's conflict with that because Ed Mauser, Easy Company veteran Ed Mauser, said he ran into Sobel after parachuting in. He did not. Sobel is I have the 506 journals from their S1, S2, and S3 covering the period before the launch of Overlord through the first week and a half. Sobel landed with the seaborne elements of the 506, bringing basically all of their um, what vehicles the regiment had. It was his job to ensure that and all of the they're called regimental trains, but basically it's all their kit bags and all their duffel bags, bedrolls, and things like that, all the follow-on material, plus replacement equipment for stuff that had been destroyed, like radios and things of that nature. His job is
was that
to
on
ensure
D-Day?
that it gets from the port onto the landing craft, from the landing craft to the shore, from the
Mhm.
shore to the regiment. So he
Did he
finally
land on
catches up
D-Day?
with them. I'm sorry.
Did he land on D-Day, or was it
Yeah,
plus?
he
Right, no,
landed
not
on
D-Day.
late on D-Day at Utah Beach and made his way down to Cooleville,
Mhm.
where he rendezvoused with the rest of the regimental headquarters. So, but the picture in question is definitely him, and it's definitely him in Normandy. It's outside of Carentan, where he's with some of the division leadership. He went to coordinate apparently some of the based on the journals and the logbooks. He went to coordinate some S4 related. supply and logistics related issues with the rest of with the division headquarters. So yes, he certainly did go in. He received he received his assault badge for his um, North Africa European campaign ribbon, and he received his combat infantryman's badge. He was a trained infantryman, so he was eligible for a CIB, so he was awarded that. He did not jump in. Um, so I appreciate everybody's excitement and fervor about the topic. Um, as Joanne on company headquarters wrote at Mad Hatter Press, she wrote a nice piece on Sobel, a very conflicted individual. Um, and I feel like there's a community out there that is focused on redressing um, what they feel might be character assassinations of Sobel. It's not meant to be a character assassination. Everybody has a role to do when the bullets
Hmm.
start flying, and his role was to do exactly what he was doing on D-Day. And we're not taking anything away from his courage or his performance or his character by saying he didn't jump in. We're saying he did what he was supposed to be doing. Those men were jumping in. That was what they were supposed to be doing. He
Hmm.
was supposed to be landing with the
Yeah.
seaborne forces and ensuring all of the regimental trains made it to the regiment.
I mean, you're not going
So
to parachute, going to
yeah,
that. I mean, you're not going to
I'm not
parachute
I'm not
back to
disparaging
the,
him. I've spoken
yeah,
to his
no.
son Michael several times. He's a very nice guy, a lovely man, and he's very protective of his father's legacy, as he should be. They had a very conflicted relationship early on when Michael was younger, but he loved his father, and he said his father was a great father. He was a great dad, um, and he always remembers that fondly. So, not meant to disparage Sobel. Even the men of Easy Company in their later lives kind of softened. There were a few that were still hard boiled about him, but
There always will be.
when you get wisdom with age, right? And they became wiser as they got older and they understood the what he was doing, right? I mean, they allude to it in the miniseries when Nixon and Winters characters are sitting there in the chow hall and talking about his motivations and
Yep.
the line about name a man in this company who wouldn't double time curry to piss in his morning coffee. And I had a headmaster like him, right?
Hmm.
I mean, he's explaining the psychology behind it all,
Exactly. It's there. It is there.
right? Um, so I would highly recommend heading over to Mad Hatter Press and reading Joanne's piece on Sobel to get some decent insights into the way the man ticked. Um, but I mean, don't let's not make a something out of nothing with it. Yeah,
No, absolutely
just
no.
because we're saying he landed with doing his job doesn't mean we're disparaging his character. We're
No,
certainly
not
not.
at all. Not at
We're
all. He
just
did,
trying to make sure that the historical record is correct.
yeah,
So,
exactly that. He was
yeah,
doing what, you can't parachute equipment from above. It'll get lost and scattered. At least,
as it did, as it did with
yeah,
the equipment bundles all over the countryside.
yeah.
In fact, one of the
That's,
reasons why the column at that T intersection was so fractured is because some of the men were in the far field collecting in equipment bundles. So, I mean,
mm,
guys are doing their jobs, right? And he was doing his job. And I hope everybody kind of takes a step back and be separates themselves emotionally from it and looks at it objectively. He had a job to do, and the proof is in the paperwork
yeah.
as well.
Not Wikipedia.
Correct.
You can change Wikipedia. As long as you put
I
a reference in, you can change it.
I have given up trying to fix all the easy company mistakes on Wikipedia. It's just not worth the time to sit there. I'd be doing it. It'd be a full-time job that I don't get paid for.
Exactly. No.
So,
Yep. Should we wrap
but
it up then? Just
I think
getting,
so. I think again, thank you to everybody for tuning in. Um, we're on Patreon. If you're so inclined and want to become a paid subscriber, there's plenty of extras for you that is just for subscribers. We're also on Buzzsprout, we're on Spotify, and we are on YouTube. Please like and subscribe and share. And we're glad you guys are here checking in with us. Sorry for the lateness of this episode. We'll endeavor to do better the next time. Um, but for Leighton and I, we're signing off. Thanks.
cheers.